Okay, we have more shark support. Dude, the video came out yesterday where I reacted to the shark cards for the first time. People were mad in the comments that I didn't evaluate those shark cards very nicely. Basically, what I said was the first one we read, the level 4, was really good, and then the rest was kind of meh. And that triggered a lot of people. They were like, dude, Josh, you're such an idiot. You're missing so much context. The old shark cards are actually all crazy, and in the context of the old shark cards, these new cards that all read kind of mediocre are actually completely insane. Long story short, that might be true, because I am guilty of not knowing every single Yu-Gi-Oh card by heart. I still think the new shark cards were all kind of mediocre. That didn't really change my mind. If you believe in the shark deck, okay, I just want to say that right out of the bat. If you believe in the shark deck with the new support, by all means go and try it and prove me wrong. I'm happily proven wrong that the shark deck is actually better than I think it's gonna be. I'm still gonna evaluate these cards with the knowledge that I have, and I do know some of the shark cards, but I just didn't feel like it was exactly what the deck needed and is going to be what makes the deck meta relevant from a high competitive standpoint, right? It's probably going to be a completely fine deck to play, but I personally don't think it's going to be great at a high level. But maybe more shark cards could change that. Anyways, Cutter Shark is another new addition. This one is not even in the Rage of the Abyss or whatever the set is called. This one is another one of those Animation Chronicle cards. It's a level 5 water fish. 0 attack, 2000 defense. You can only use the first and second effects of this card's name each once per turn. When one monster you control and no other cards is targeted for an attack or with a card effect, and this card's in your hand or graveyard, you contribute that monster, special summon this card. If this card is special summoned, you can activate this effect, add a water monster from your graveyard to your hand during the end phase of this turn, except Cutter Shark. Okay. That is a, in theory, that's a neat effect. I see the applications, right? It lets you dodge Imperm and Effect Veiler and all kinds of targeting effects over and over and over again, right? Because this goes into the graveyard and then hops out of the graveyard, stops your stuff from being targeted. Well, actually, it doesn't stop your stuff from being targeted. It just, like, you know, if your opponent Imperms your normal summon, you can dodge it with that. And then as a slight bonus, you get to add a water monster from the graveyard back to the hand in the end phase. Those are two reasonable effects. However, I don't feel like that makes a card good enough when that's the only purpose, right? Because, like, what if your opponent just doesn't have Imperm or Effect Veiler? Then this card basically does nothing. Now, there's probably going to be a bunch of Shark Andes in the comments telling me that this is exactly what the Shark deck needed, and because you contribute a shark card from like the year 2007, and if Jupiter and Mars are in an extremely good constellation next to each other, then this wins you the game. I personally still don't think this is a very good card. I don't think you would play a situational card like that just for occasional, you know, basically a card that only has a purpose when your opponent plays into it is kind of mediocre, I think. But maybe, yeah, maybe it's broken with the Great White. I don't know. Then we have a new Gimmick Puppet, which this one I actually am more scared of, because Gimmick Puppet, even though so far the only Gimmick Puppet that's really seeing competitive play is Gimmick Puppet Nightmare in Branded, the new Gimmick Puppet support is actually quite scary. Well, the new Gimmick Puppet support that's already been announced. I've already reacted to that a couple weeks ago. And I think that's already a functioning deck in the OCG at the moment. It's not top meta, but it's already functioning, and I believe it even has some extremely stupid like one card FTKs and stuff like that. Obviously, if it was actually good, like a one card FTK that actually was good, would already be seeing play in the OCG, but currently is not. I assume that's because in the OCG at the moment, most of the decks are playing a very high amount of hand traps, but still, obviously, that is scary. The Gimmick Puppet deck is something that I personally am looking upon. Like, I'm not a huge fan of the Gimmick Puppet deck as a, like, the new concept that they are presenting for the deck, because my kind of fear is that it's an archetype that the best case scenario for it is, from a competitive standpoint, if it's not playable, right? Like, I think there's two outcomes. It's either playable and then it's kind of gonna give everyone a hard time, or it's not gonna be playable, and that's like the best case scenario, which I don't think that's good design of an archetype. I know a lot of people like the OG Gimmick Puppets because they are kind of different in their artworks and all that kind of stuff, and that's all fair enough. But the new playstyle that they are giving the deck, I'm not sure if I like that. Anyways, maybe it's not even changing the playstyle of the deck that much, but it's kind of making it more viable. I don't know. Anyways, Gimmick Puppet Killer Knight, level 4 Dark Machine. You can only use the first and second effect of this card's name each once per turn, and you cannot special summon from the extra deck the turn you activate either of them, except Gimmick Puppet monsters. If this card is in your hand, you can target a Gimmick Puppet in your grave or a monster in your opponent's grave, special it to its owner's field in defense position, but its effects are negated, then special summon this card. If this card is sent to the graveyard except from the hand, you can add it to your hand. This card is pretty good. Not for in the modern sense, it's not like a starter card or anything like that, but it is a phenomenal extender, you know, like just special summon itself and a Gimmick Puppet monster from your graveyard. I'm pretty sure you can do some stuff with the ability to give your opponents cards from their graveyard. Like, one usage could potentially be to play if you play Thrust in the deck and you get hand trapped, like Ashed or Veilered or whatever, right? You can just use this as a free special summon and then give your opponent the effect Veiler and then use Thrust to add, which is something that when the card is already good, which it's already a good card, if it has bonus applications like that, I think that's very scary. And then obviously if it's sent to the graveyard, it just camps back to your hand. I think that's like a, I don't know if this would be a 3 of in like Gimmick Puppet combo decks, but it seems like the kind of perfect card to play as a 1 of, to send to the graveyard with some of your card effects. I'm pretty sure Gimmick Puppets have ways to send cards from the deck to the graveyard, so you just get it back for free, extra bodies, all that kind of stuff. I'm sure Gimmick Puppet appreciates this card, but once again, the new way that Gimmick Puppet is being played so far, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, chat, but I think it topped the YCS in Japan. But that was legitimately just an FTK, right? It was an FTK deck that topped the YCS in a best of 1 format. That kind of play style, like I said earlier, in my opinion, the unfortunate thing here is that the best case scenario is that the Gimmick Puppet deck doesn't actually see play, which is kind of annoying. But yeah, it did top. Okay, yeah. It was the FTK version as well, right? I'm not tripping, because I thought that's what people said when we looked at YCS Japan results. I think it was the FTK version that topped. I don't know if there is like a quote-unquote, let's call it a more based way to play Gimmick Puppets. That would be desirable, right? Maybe there is the option to maybe ban a certain card that facilitates the FTK but leave all the other stuff intact. And then maybe Gimmick Puppet can be played as a quote-unquote normal Yu-Gi-Oh deck, right? That would be my ideal scenario. But as it is right now, it seems kind of weird. But okay, this card is definitely good. And then we have another card for Tachyon. We've already seen some Galaxy Eyes / Tachyon Dragon support recently that wasn't actually all too bad. So this could also be a relevant card. It's a normal spell card. You can only activate one of it per turn. You reveal a number Xyz monster in your extra deck that has a number between 101 and 107 in its name. You cannot special summon from the extra deck for the rest of this turn after this card resolves, except Xyz monsters also add one monster with the same type and or attribute as the revealed monster and a level equal to its rank from your deck to your hand, then place a card from your hand on the top of the deck. I'm not exactly sure which the numbers between 101 and 107, which cards they are. I know 101 is, that's Silent Honor Arc, right? So water. It has kind of these small world vibes, right? Because you can like search a bunch of different, if there's the right extra deck card for the piece that you're searching, you can use this to search it. It also counts the chaos numbers. Yeah. So is that like which attributes are we talking? Someone made a list. Oh, is there? Nice. Okay. So you have level 4 or 5 water aqua. You have level 4 5 light fairy, level 4 5 water or fairy, level 4 light light spellcaster, or level 5 dark or spellcaster, level 4 fire or warrior, 4 5 raisin. Okay. Level 4 5 earth or rock, level 8 9 light or dragon. So we can't do wind. Yeah, the only attribute that you don't get is wind. And you get a bunch of different types that you can search, right? And it needs to be... The level needs to be the same, and you only need to match one out of type or attribute, right? There's a couple other things to this. Obviously, you have to be playing a deck that can live with a complete Xyz lock, which most of the time will hurt. The other thing is that you obviously do still go -1 for a searcher, and I've said this in the past with Small World, right? Because Small World is in theory a good Yu-Gi-Oh card because it searches any monster in the game, and this card is kind of in the same boat, even though it doesn't search every single card in the game, but it searches some of them. This is essentially a worse Small World, with the only upside that your bridges, quote unquote, are not in the main deck, they are in the extra deck, and you don't have to draw it with a specific other monster. You can put any card from your hand back into the deck. So in some ways it's better than Small World, in some ways it's worse than Small World. But in general, they are kind of the same idea. If you are playing a deck that can use the card and wants to really search a specific monster, you now have another way of doing that, right? My problem is that usually if a deck has to rely on a card like this to find a specific monster, it's usually not great. It's not a great sign for the deck if it needs this card, is what I'm trying to say. It's a very convoluted way of saying the card is good, but the decks that need the card, they usually aren't great, right? Like if your deck is so reliant on playing if you're so desperate basically that your deck needs to play a -1 searcher that locks you into Xyz and takes up extra deck space at the same time, you never want to be in that position, right? Exo Sister would love this card. I guess Exo Sister is a deck. If Martha is level 4 light, yeah, you can do Martha, right? You can search Martha with this card. But Exo Sister it's kind of the same thing. If Exo Sister plays this card, right, you're already playing a deck that isn't great, which is Exo Sister, right? And the reason that Exo Sister isn't great is not that it can't draw Martha consistently. Obviously, that helps, but it's not like the main reason why Exo Sisters aren't top tier at the moment. The main reason why Exo Sisters aren't top tier is because they aren't as powerful as other decks, right? They don't create they don't have as powerful of combos, they don't create as powerful of boards, they don't generate as much card advantage and follow-up as other decks, and the fact that you can now search your starter for -1 isn't that great, right? Like for example, I don't think Exo Sister plays Small World, for example. Even though maybe it's harder to facilitate Small World than this card, I can see this card being better in Exo Sister than Small World, because maybe the bridges don't work out all the time. But the good decks in Yu-Gi-Oh often don't have this problem anymore, right? That they don't that they desperately need a searcher that goes -1 for a certain card, right? Like you rarely see the best decks in Yu-Gi-Oh play Small World, and that's not because Small World is a bad card. That's because having to search a specific monster for -1 just isn't great. And this is the same with this card. So I think you'd have to be very desperate to be playing this card, right? But with all the one card combos that are being printed at the moment, which is not a great direction in my opinion, I don't love that, but there are a good amount of one card combos being printed. There's a chance that at some point there's a deck that relies on a one card combo and doesn't care about being locked into Xyz and wants to play this card, right? Definitely a possibility. Can you search Shifter with this? First of all, you would have a card in the graveyard after you do that, because this card goes into the graveyard. But you can't, because there is no level 6. You can do level 4, 5, and 8, 9. Those are the only levels that you have. But Shifter is not possible because it needs the level needs to match. You can choose type or attribute, as if I understand this correctly. Type, it doesn't have to have both. It can be type or attribute, but the level needs to be equal, right? But okay. Decent batch of cards, I guess. Nothing too crazy. I don't even know if the I guess the Photon deck might use this card because it doesn't care about the Xyz lock, and I think they're getting some powerful 1-card combos, but overall nothing too crazy. I think the best card was the Gimmick Puppet, even though I'm also, no pun intended, kind of scared of the Gimmick Puppet. Anyways.